And then we also did the same study, repeated it with parents who are struggling, parents who have been referred to parenting programs by Child Safety. And we found even less of those parents were willing to talk. So only 2% had given their children information about family members and known others.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
So my research just shows that parents are really struggling with this. And this really highlights, this research we have evidence from 40 years ago to suggest that parents were struggling in the same way to tell their kids this. So the research we have suggests that parents would like to do this, but find it really tough. And on the whole, don't do it, are not able to do it. And that's possibly because they feel they don't want to break their child's trusting in others. They don't want to cause any harms or fear. So the parents, I spoke to, I did a qualitative study. So I interviewed 24 parents here on the Gold Coast. And out of those parents, over 80% had concerns about the harms that might come from giving their child specific information. So my research is really kind of building a bit of a story about parents really want to do this, but they struggle to do this. They have concerns about doing it. And that even education or knowing what the dangers are doesn't help parents do this. And that despite parents knowing that the dangers come from familiar adults, they always revert back to focusing on strangers and abduction in their warnings to their children. And then I also did a study last year here at Griffith from the other point of view. So I talked to young adults, I talked to students here or surveyed students here who I asked them about the education that they'd received in their past. And I asked them what their parents told them. And they remembered the same thing. I think 97% said, my parents talked to me about strangers and abduction, and a much lower percent, I think it was 19%, said, my parents gave me specific information. So when you're looking at the offspring, they're saying the same thing that the parents are saying. And interestingly, we just don't have the evidence to suggest that knowledge is helping children in this area, that knowing about sexual abuse is helping them prevent sexual abuse. And we know this from other areas of research, say health particularly. We all know that we shouldn't smoke or we shouldn't eat certain things or we shouldn't, there's a lot of health behaviors that we know we should do and yet we don't. Or other areas involving interpersonal, say in a domestically violent situation. Victims in that situation usually know that what's happening is not right, know they shouldn't stay, but find it very difficult to extract themselves because you're not just talking about them. The behavior is not just easy for them to enact. They're thinking about a whole, they're thinking about a whole lot of interactions there and a whole lot of relationships. And it's the same for knowing about this. So just because a child has all the knowledge, just because a child knows what sexual abuse is and who might be the perpetrators and what they need to do if they find themselves in this situation, that does not mean that when they're in a situation, in a very close relationship with an adult who has groomed them and has groomed the family and is a person of standing in the society or a person of authority or a person their family likes, for them to avoid, resist, disclose in that circumstance is really, really difficult. And I think we all know as adults that sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we think, I should say something here, I should not let this happen. And it's hard. It's hard. And it's particularly tough for kids when it's an adult that is attempting to do this with them, because adults who act in this way with kids are very good at what they do. Good at getting this relationship with the child and slowly desensitizing them. And so there is not much evidence to suggest that the knowledge that children gain from education is actually helping them prevent abuse. So the study that I did with Griffith University students last year, we actually looked at that. We asked them, did they receive education at school and from their parents? And then were they sexually abused? And we found no relationship between education and instance of abuse. And other studies have found that as well. So I think in that, with all the information that's amassing in this area, we really need to start thinking about other ways to prevent sexual abuse, other than relying children to protect themselves. Because, that's something we've moved away from, obviously, with rape and with sexual harassment and sexual assault of adults. We no longer rely on victims to protect themselves. We're doing other things. We're doing other things to try to prevent sexual assault and sexual harassment. And I think it's time we did that with sexual abuse as well.
All right, thank you for that. That is really a thorough and a deep research that you are into, and you need to continue because it is very important, the conversation, especially in helping to underline the gray line, the line that is not very clearly defined. No? Okay, yes. Now, when you say that we should look for alternative way of how to prevent the abuse, what do you mean exactly? What is your suggestion?
Well, that's the suggestion that is this new program that I'm developing. So rather than involving parents as educators, so there are lots of programs that are targeted at parents in this area, but teaching them how to teach their children about sexual abuse. And that's what I'm saying is not really the best way to use them. Using parents as educators is just liable to the same criticisms as school programs. So we really need to involve parents by helping parents to create safer environments using that situational crime prevention theory that I mentioned. So really working with parents to create safer environments where sexual abuse is less likely to occur. We can never erase it. We can never put a bubble around a child. We can never make sure that the child is always in a safe situation. But we can tweak things in the environment to make the child safer, to make the environment, the situation just a bit safer. Hopefully a lot safer, but sometimes just making little changes can make a difference. And the other way is child well-being. So we know that offenders target children who are emotionally needy, who they can then provide things the child might be missing out on, say affection, attention, involvement, listening, all those things. So the other side of it is helping parents to engage with their children on that level, trying to bolster their child's well-being so that they are less likely to be targeted in that way. So they're less likely to be lured by those temptations of love and affection. So I think parents can be protective with those two pathways.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewanfo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.